Buckle up. There is a lot more to report from the hard drive from hell. Welcome to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of thenationalpulse.com, one of the few news outlets in the entire world that dares to report on Hunter Biden's hard drive, his emails, the photographs, the videos. And as we go through line by line, email by email, text message by text message, and disgusting photograph to disgusting photograph, we'll be reporting to you what we find that is fair game, that is in the realm of Hunter Biden using his position as the son of the Vice President of the United States for access, for favors, for political lobbying, for and on behalf of his friends, his political friends, the people he works with, the people who need favors from an administration that apparently was all too happy to do them, as long as the big guy got a phone call from Hunter. Now you might be wondering, you might be thinking, well, you know, Hunter Biden might have some political views and he's free to share those political views with his father, and his father's free to act on those political views. That's relatively normal. Except for the fact that Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and all of their allies across the media have told us for years that there was no political lobbying relationship between these two men. They had a mutual understanding, we're told, that Hunter Biden would not lobby Joe Biden. And it's a lie. And some of you watching this show, in fact most of you watching this show, probably are not surprised by that. You probably understand that this has been going on for a long time. You probably understand that the Obama administration was one of the most corrupt administrations this country has ever seen. There's a reason every time you hear about it from the political left and their friends in the media, they say it was a scandal-free administration. That's not a matter of fact. That's a matter of talking points. That's a matter of framing. It's a matter of public relations. And now the documents are coming out. And what's happening? Of course, Twitter is blocking a lot of them. The New York Post still can't tweet their articles unless they abide by Twitter's regulations, which is to remove their news stories that are demonstrable, evidence-based, fact-based, screen grabs, screenshots that verify everything that is in this hard drive is completely and totally accurate. Remember, at first we were told this is Russian disinformation. Well, that narrative fell apart pretty quickly. Yeah, Joe Biden made brief mention of it last night at the debate, but even he knew it was BS. Because if it wasn't, he would have gone harder on it. He would have forced President Trump to answer for why he's spreading Russian propaganda. But it's not Russian propaganda. It's nowhere close to Russian propaganda. Russian propaganda and disinformation from any foreign nation cannot stretch to the levels and the scale and the magnitude of what we're seeing on the hard drive from hell. It's simply not possible. Yes, we've heard about deep fakes for quite some years, but you can't deep fake some of the stuff that's on this drive. It's not technically possible. It's not technically possible from a technical sense on one image. You would be able to spot those certain things. And it's not technically possible unless you have an army of 150,000 seriously talented video editors working morning, noon, and night to invent what's on this drive. Now, I'm not particularly interested in some of the more disgusting images on this drive. I think what Hunter Biden does in his spare time, as long as it's not criminal, and that'll be for the law enforcement to figure out whether or not some of this was criminal. If it's not criminal, then you're just a freak show. Do whatever you want. Do it within the privacy of your own home, or the hotels, or other people's homes, or the strip club, or all these other locations that are very clearly marked in this drive. But I will show you a picture. I want to get the picture up that we have here of Hunter Biden. I want to show you this picture. It's not graphic. I've made sure that it's not something that will scare the family audiences out there watching this show. Denver, do we have that picture? I want to make sure we throw it up on screen. Should be in our collection of images. Once I see it pop up in the corner, I'll let you guys know. But the reason I want to put this up, thank you, in my ear, working on it. The reason I want to put this up is it corroborates the device. It shows you that this device was him taking pictures of himself. This isn't somebody peeping in the window. This isn't somebody, accessing his computer without his knowledge. These are selfies. He knows that he's taking these images. And the still that I'm about to show you, or I hope we're about to show you, is from a much longer, frankly, deeply, deeply disturbing video that shows some of Hunter Biden's, there it is, some of Hunter Biden's weird sexual preferences. But again, as I say, that's not what we're going to report out. That's not what we're about here. But the reason I'm showing this to you is because Jake Tapper and all the fake news crowd say you can't corroborate this drive. You can't corroborate that this is Hunter Biden, that this came from Hunter Biden, that this was from the laptop that was left at the repair shop in Delaware. But believe me, you can. And if they want to continue lying about this, then we will be forced to show some of the more revealing images on this drive. When we come back, I'll talk to you about the scoops, the news scoops we're seeing as a result of all of this. Stick around and stay tuned. Natalie Winters is in studio with me today. We'll be breaking down some of this more information as we go through and talking to you about the State Department and what the State Department is trying to stop the American public from seeing as it pertains to Joe Biden and Xi Jinping. There's more on that in just a moment. But I want to show you some of the stuff that we're finding through our investigations of this drive over here at the National Pulse. The first one I want to put on this screen, let's go ahead and put this image up on the screen. The first one I want to put on this screen is a news story we broke last night. And that was the first one. It was the first email that really stood out to me, and it was the second email that I saw on the drive in total. That shows you just how prevalent some of this stuff is on here. So this is an email that shows that Hunter Biden was being asked by his lobbyist friend Chuck Harpel. Now, Chuck Harpel represents a lot of big corporate and union interests here in Washington, D.C. They make a very fine living for themselves out of it. I've gone through some of the data of how much their firm makes, major retainers from all sorts of different associations, lobby groups, unions, and big corporate entities. You want to talk about hypocrisy, by the way. Chuck Harpel represents or has represented some big oil companies, and he's lobbying Hunter Biden, and Hunter Biden's lobbying Joe Biden. Thought Joe Biden wasn't for all of that old fossil fuel type stuff. Oh, it's okay. His son's telling him to do stuff. So he does it. What do I mean by this? So the email from Chuck Harpel, a lobbyist and senior partner at his firm, it says, Hunter, I will tell you that the building trades are at the end of their rope with this administration. They're talking about the Obama-Biden administration. They, General President Marquez and Secretary-Treasurer Sean McCarvey were told 2 years ago that Nate Tamarin was the Labor guy. Since then, those that have chosen to circumvent Nate after no action did hear the wrath of Nate. Those that stood up to him, the IBEW, the NEA, the IAAFF, etc., basically told Nate to F off in a nice way. It goes on to talk about how the union had political access under the Bush presidency. I was able to call Rove, Melman, Sarah Taylor, and Andy Card. Granted, a lot didn't get done, but at least we were heard. Whereas now we have our team in, and Sean has sent an official letter asking for a meeting with Vice President Biden over a year ago. And the reasoning for not getting the meeting is absolutely ridiculous. So what is worse? Having our guys in there and no access, or having access like with Bush with terrible results? Furthermore, the National Building and Construction Trade Secretary-Treasurer, who represents nearly 3.5 million members, thinks that Vice President Biden doesn't want to meet with him and his president, Mark Ayers. Harpel went on. You should not be worried about getting yelled at by the boss or his staff. They should be essing their pants thinking that, because of miscommunications, the building trades think they are being dissed by the vice president. Personally, the building trades are too honorable and stuck on protocol. If it were my union, I would have sandwiched the president, VP, or their COS and made sure they knew. All that said, what works best for you and I is for you to call Sean first, say you talk to me, and that you want to get all the facts before you talk to the big guy. That's Joe Biden. This will be good for both of us. What do you think? Well, 2 hours and 20 minutes later, Hunter Biden writes back. Remember, this is Hunter Biden, who allegedly does not lobby his father. Quote, I'll work on it. But is there any issue I should know about before I go around everyone and straight to him? If I ask, he will do it. But if I am missing something legit, then I will get killed by staff. R. Hunter Biden. Is that clear enough? There's a lobbyist who wants something for his clients. Remember, he makes a lot of money from these clients. He emails Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden replies and says, if I ask, he will do it. And remember, Chuck Harpel said, this will be good for both of us. That is a quid pro quo. That is a real quid pro quo. That is a quid pro quo larger than a president of the United States was impeached for last year. It's self-evident what's going on here. And the repeated denials by Joe Biden, his campaign, the left media, and the cover that big tech are giving to him is nothing short of a national scandal, an international scandal, a global scandal, and a historic scandal. But wait, there's more. Let's get on the next image up on the screen, please. This is a response. I hope it's the right one. I can't see that far. This is a response from Chuck Harpel to Hunter Biden less than a week later. Now, Hunter Biden had written to Chuck Harpel and said, Mark and JRB, Joseph R. Biden, the Vice President of the United States, spoke live today and plan to meet in the new year. Let me know what Sean says. And the response from Chuck Harpel is, talk to Sean. He and Marquez totally credit you for saving the day. I was a little taken aback over their enthusiasm, but they truly felt, for once, they were being heard. These guys are the best. A person never has to BS or sugarcoat things, and with the man calling them directly means the world to them. I personally thank you for doing this. It will help along the way. This is why I have always been a fan to have a true Labour person on staff. Chuck Harpel to Hunter Biden. So not only do we have a situation where a lobbyist feels incredibly comfortable approaching Hunter Biden agrees to approach his father, but just less than a week later we have the confirmation that indeed Hunter Biden took that action, lobbied his father as vice president made the phone call to this special interest group, and then Chuck Harpel says to Hunter Biden, they totally credit you for saving the day. I personally thank you for doing this. Was Hunter Biden registered as a lobbyist for this firm? Did he tell people that he was lobbying his father in the White House? Did his father disclose that as an interest? Or did they lie the entire way? Did they fake an entire history in the White House? Did they try and cover up corruption and nepotism like they accuse the current sitting president of without these smoking guns, with nothing even remotely close? Oh yeah, that's right, they did. That's exactly what they did. And the mainstream media, be it on the left or the right, are failing to report it. We'll be back with more. Welcome back to the National Pulse. I want to thank all of our new viewers. I know we've seen an increase in the viewership over the last couple of days, and I want to welcome all of you who are new to this show. Take the active step, if you will, of following the National Pulse on Twitter. It's at the Nat Pulse. You can also go to thenationalpulse.com/support. That's where you can actually join us. We have a membership program called The Nationalists, and there are several different membership packages, ways to join up. You get a lot of freebies out of it and a private chat channel with the editors and staff at The National Pulse. So you always know and you're always ahead of what's going on. This is real news, real investigative journalism, and we're very grateful for your support. And the end of this hour, as we do every Friday, we'll be reading out a list of names of the people who have joined us kindly over the last couple of weeks to support real news. We're not backed by big corporate enterprises. We don't take sponsorships from big corporate or special interests. We rely on you, the people, to help us do our job in exposing some of this malfeasance that we're about to go through right now. Let's start. I'm going to show you what I'm working on right now. This is another one of the emails on the hard drive from hell. Let's put it up on the screen here. So you see here, this is an email from Hunter Biden. It's signed off RHB, and as I say, we're still working on this story right now, but I wanted to give you guys a heads up over what we're finding in advance. He's talking to a guy called Vadim Pozharsky. This is an advisor, a senior advisor to the Burisma board. You'll remember Burisma is the Ukrainian oil company, one of the hugest companies in Europe that is just filled, racked with corruption. And Hunter Biden sits on the board of Burisma, and he's got Vadim, the senior advisor to the board of Burisma, writing to him, and he writes back. And he says, I am with Devon, his business partner, Devon Archer, in Doha. We will have a discussion with the Boyce Schiller team, that's their legal team, ASAP. What are the formal, if any, accusations being made against Burisma and or its holding companies? What ultimately is their goal in attacking Burisma? Who is ultimately behind these attacks on the company? Who in the current interim government could put an end to such attacks? Thanks, Hunter. Now, the reason this email is important, although it may seem like I'm in the weeds on this one to you, the reason this email is important is because you'll remember that Joe Biden, as vice president, lobbied the Ukrainian government to fire the special prosecutor who was investigating Burisma for corruption. In fact, I believe we have a video, if we can play, of Joe Biden speaking at the... Do we have that video of Joe Biden speaking at the Council on Foreign Relations? I think we have it up here that we can play. Let's play that. Let's remind ourselves.
For China, I've spent a lot of time. Apparently, I was told by the folks of state I've spent more time in private meetings with Xi Jinping than any world leader. I have 25 hours of private dinners with him, just he and I, and one interpreter,
Wrong clip, but it doesn't matter. It's the same event. We'll try and get you the right clip by the end of the show. In that same meeting at the Council on Foreign Relations, you heard him talking about the Xi Jinping stuff there, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. But in that same video, in that same speech, he brags about getting the prosecutor who is looking into Burisma. His son is on the board of that company. He brags about getting things fired. He withholds or threatens to withhold $1 billion of U.S. taxpayer money that was due to be going to Ukraine for whatever crazy foreign aid reasons, insisting that the prosecutor gets fired. Now, again, why is this important? What does it have to do? How does this all connect? And we have another email here that I'm going to put up on the screen. Let's do it. So they claim no knowledge of this prosecutor investigating Burisma, right? That's what Joe Biden said all along. Oh, I didn't know what my son was doing. I didn't even know he was on the board of Burisma. But here's the thing. They absolutely did know that Burisma was being investigated. Here's what this email says. This is from Vadim, the advisor to Hunter and Devon Archer. Dear Hunter and Devon, as to the questions you posed, what are the formal, if any, accusations being made against Burisma and or its holding companies? Here's Vadim's answer. Official letters, inquiries from the Ministry of Internal Affairs that were sent to the Ministry of Ecology and Natural Resources and to State Geological and Subsurface Survey are attached in Ukrainian and translated in English for your usage. Please mind that we had obtained that unofficially In that letter, it stated that pretrial proceedings started following Article 191, Part 5 of the Criminal Code, misappropriation, embezzlement, or conversion of property by malversion. Full text attached for your information. Why use this article and what they mean from formal point of view is unclear. My colleagues tell me that Ministry of Internal Affairs these days uses this article in most cases to start any pre-trial proceedings. So they knew. By May the 12th, 2014, they knew that their company was being investigated. Now, shortly afterwards, the special prosecutor was put into place, and shortly after that, Joe Biden took it upon himself to go to Ukraine. He went to Ukraine and threatened to withhold the $1 billion. A quid pro quo. Fire the prosecutor, another quid pro quo, I should say. Fire the prosecutor, or you don't get your $1 billion. Fire the person investigating my son's company, or you don't get your $1 billion. And sure enough, as Joe Biden said, son of a bee, they fired him. They fired the special prosecutor at the lobbying behest of the Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden, who has claimed to this date that they have no idea that this was going on. Are you meaning to tell me that Hunter Biden, and I have more on this, by the way, that Hunter Biden and his firm were spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions, to hire law firms, as I read to you in the last one, law firms here in the United States to make representations here in the United States, all across the political sphere, that they're willing to spend all of that money and time and effort, and you can clearly see in these emails they're panicked about this investigation. You mean to tell me that Joe Biden just happened upon that name of that special prosecutor? You mean to tell me that Joe Biden just happened to visit Ukraine a number of times and say, hey, you gotta fire that prosecutor? I want to put on this screen really quickly just before we go, so you guys see it. This is Joe Biden's private email account in Hunter Biden's hard drive. Keep in touch. Love, Dad. He goes by the pseudonym Peter Henderson. More on that as well after this short break. think we have the right clip now of Joe Biden bragging that he got the prosecutor fired. I want to roll that immediately. We'll come to it. Well, apparently, we'll come to it in just a second. So, as soon as it's ready to go, they're going to let me know. But this just serves as a reminder, right? They went after this president for a quid pro quo. They called it bribery. They called it all sorts of things. Natalie, how many times did Joe Biden lobby for this prosecutor to be fired?
So in the 8 days following up to this prosecutor getting fired, Joe Biden called the president of Ukraine 4 times. And this is according to former aides. And this isn't even conspiracy theories or even coming from the hard drive. This is reported by the LA Times a few years back.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because the original emails that we talked about in the first block of this show showed how hard it was to get a phone call from the vice president. But you're telling me that the vice president called the Ukrainian president 4 times in 8 days. That's a call every other day. Just to catch up?
No, to quote, reiterate the U.S. position. And that's the LA Times words, not mine, not yours.
Let's go ahead and roll this clip.
So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a bitch. Got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Is everything becoming very clear? Is it becoming clear that the whole impeachment process of President Trump was a projection operation by the Democrats, who knew that their briber-in-chief was about to be their candidate for president? How long could a Joe Biden presidency last with all the incriminating information now that's coming out? He should be impeached on day 1. Natalie, there's so much more, and in the last segment we played the clip of Joe Biden talking about his 25 hours of private meetings with Xi Jinping of China. Now, we heard last night at the debate, Joe Biden was making the claim, I got nothing to do with China, I've never had any business dealings with China. I mean, we know that his son was deeply involved with Chinese Communist Party-linked companies. He flat out lied, did he not, on the debate stage last night?
Exactly. He said he's never taken money from foreign sources. There's Politico stories about his brother bragging about an investment firm that they set up. There were, quote, foreigners lining up with 747s ready to pump money into this investment firm to gain influence and access to the Biden administration. So that's a patently false and frankly an absurd comment to make, even if the hard drive didn't exist. But interestingly enough, I was prompted to submit a Freedom of Information Act request to the State Department in light of the remarks that then Vice President Joe Biden made at that Council on Foreign Relations event. And it's also certainly interesting when you see so much pushback from the media, from Democratic politicians saying the Biden family, they could never be involved in a crime syndicate type organization. In just one speaking event, you see Joe Biden admitting to having 25 hours of private meetings with Xi Jinping, bragging about getting a prosecutor fired. But as I said, as we like to watch the watchers here, I submitted a Freedom of Information Act request a few months back, hoping to get a response from the State Department saying that they would turn over, I believe it was any and all information that was relevant to Joe Biden's 25 hours of private meetings with the State Department. And if you hear in the clip, he talks about that State Department was the agency, the department that told him that he held the world record.
They told him.
Exactly. So It's a logical conclusion that for some reason they believe that to be the case, they must have the record. So I submit this FOIA request. It was a real hassle getting a response from them on the estimated completion date, but they hit back and say that April 5th, 2000, and catch this, 23, is when I will get to know the nature, any documents, anything really, any information related to his private meetings. Now, not only is that 2 years and 2 months past inauguration day of a potential Biden administration, but it's actually 300 days closer to the 2024 election than it is the 2020 election. So when you talk about government agencies, specifically at the hands of, I'd say, career appointees as opposed to presidential appointees, running interference for the Biden family for establishment type politicians, this is what you're seeing. But luckily, Representative Jim Banks just released a letter. We have the story up exclusively at the National Pulse to the State Department asking them to process this FOIA request to get this information out there, because it definitely is a matter of national security. It's information very relevant to the upcoming November 3rd election, whether it's to corroborate, say, these New York Post emails. But you would think that just in general, the American people deserve to know what Joe Biden, whose son has made millions, if not his firm's billions of dollars from the Chinese Communist Party, was talking about for over 25 hours with the leader of the regime that basically is in charge of all the organizations that Hunter Biden was inking many, many business deals with.
It's a great story, and we're very grateful for Congressman Jim Banks representing his constituents and indeed the country to try and get this information out of the State Department, which is no doubt attempting to cover for Joe Biden. And what can you do as citizens? You can write to the State Department, you can call the State Department, you can call your representatives, you can go to thenationalpulse.com, get that story, send it to your representatives and say, hey, Congressman Jim Banks is doing something about this, what are you doing about it? And believe me, if enough of you light them up, they will respond. And they will be forced to respond. You know, it's one thing for Scoops over here to write to the State Department. It's another whole thing if 10, 15, 20,000 of you are heaping pressure on. So do it. I want to put on screen now the names of the people that support us over at the National Pulse. We're just delighted to serve you guys, really, with the real news. And we're very grateful that people like Andrew J. and Carolyn B., Ted G., Joseph H., Robert K., James G., Rick C., Henrietta J., Anna B., that you all choose to join, and the names will keep rolling on that screen because there are just so many people who are dedicated to supporting real news, and we're so very grateful for it. If you want to join up, head to thenationalpulse.com/support. Literally the $10 that it costs to join helps us do more, helps us, buy a different computer we need, or hire somebody to research something, or build a graphic for something. So do your part. Go to thenationalpulse.com/support. We'll be back with Kane from citizenfreepress.com. Welcome back to the National Pulse. I'm Raheem Kassam, editor-in-chief of thenationalpulse.com. The site is on fire at the moment. We're dropping these emails bit by bit as we manage to go through them. I want you guys to understand that we don't have a team of 50 people who all have this device and are able to go through these things. It's literally Natalie, myself, and one or two others who are going through this stuff. Drip, drip, drip. That's the way we're going to have to do this. We know we don't have a long time to go until the election, so we're working our very, very hardest on it, I assure you. I want to bring in now Kane, founder of citizenfreepress.com. As we do every Friday, Kane, thank you for joining us.
Happy Friday. Let's do this thing.
So, Kane, look, firstly, I want to get your feedback on the debate last night.
Much better, much calmer. I've been putting polls up. There were 18 independent polls that someone compiled on Twitter, and Trump won 17 of them. He lost the CNN poll by 15 points, but he lost the first debate CNN poll by 32 points. So that was an improvement. And you can imagine the crosstabs in that CNN poll. In the breaking news 911 poll, Trump won 81% to 19. And lastly, in Frank Luntz's LA Times sponsored event with just independent voters, there were 9 of them, and 8 of them said that they thought Trump won and they would vote for him. And these were people who were legitimately independent. So I thought it was good. I thought Biden was weak. I thought it was weak at the end. Trump scored some serious points when he talked about 47 years of failure. So I'm happy. The only question is how many voters were really available and watching. And by available, I mean, with their votes being available. So those are my thoughts. We'll see. It's 10 days and a wake up. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the end of that debate, Kane, was really, it was very palpable that Joe Biden was getting very, very tired. He was staring at his watch. He started rambling on about environmental policy and kind of shot himself in the foot as it pertained to shutting down of fossil fuel usage and fracking. It kind of went against everything he's been trying to get away from for so long. And I looked at the reaction in the morning, and whether it was the polling, whether it was the Twitter polls, the website polls, the real polls, the focus groups, whatever it was, and I just saw over and over again President Trump emerging as the winner there. But as you say, we'll see if it makes a difference or not. I am getting some good feedback about some of the states and how the polling is changing there going against Joe Biden. A lot of it, I think, is actually coming off the back of people waking up to what he was doing with his son Hunter, what he was doing, and how the big tech and media companies are reacting to that story. It makes it look even worse. It makes it look like there's something to hide. Somebody who's not hiding that story, Kane, is you at citizenfreepress.com. You've been aggregating all the best information. We're really, really grateful for all the links that you've thrown us in recent days. So let's talk about this drive, this laptop. What are your thoughts in terms of what are you seeing out of your audience and how much interest there is in this story?
Well, there's huge interest, but as you know, this is our side of the equation is not surprised by this. We're well aware. These stories about Hunter and his corruption and Joe and his corruption have been floating around in conservative media for years. So our side isn't so surprised, but the details themselves are stunning. No one expected to find personal photographs, personal emails, and the kind of video that you guys have uncovered. It's fantastic work that you've done. So I'm happy to link to the National Pulse and the Bannon War Room. And you guys are ground zero for this. You're the ones who are breaking it all, you and Rudy. So it's fantastic. What are my thoughts? We'll see if the mainstream media pays attention. I mean, that's really what it matters. Does my mom know about it? She's the bellwether. She's someone who only watches certain networks, and she's a Trump voter. So we'll see how much it plays. Definitely, the polls are tightening. The Investor's Business Daily, which was named the #1 poll, and Drudge himself was just bragging about the IBD poll last week. Well, it tightened to 2.5 points, or maybe it was 3.1. And that's exactly where they had Hillary versus Trump in 2016. So this race is the same. I feel like it's exactly the same. I looked it up this morning. There were 138 million votes cast in 2016. Hillary got 65.8. Trump got 63 million. So let's say we get a boost to 150 or 155 million. It shows you how important turnout is going to be. Whichever side gets the extra 5% boost that the other side doesn't get, that side is probably going to win. All the swing states are going to be the same. You can add New Hampshire and Minnesota, but besides those two states, and perhaps New Mexico, but besides those states, it's the same story from 2016, where Trump is actually losing in almost all of this, or was losing in almost all of the swing state polls, and he won every one of those races, or all of them except for Minnesota. So, and as we talked last week, the Trafalgar polls are showing that Trump is doing very, very well in the Rust Belt. So I really think it's going to be almost exactly like 2016. I think it's going to be very, very close, and it's going to rest on a couple 100,000 votes in all of these states, and we'll see who turns out in greater numbers.
You know, there was a story today about, I think it was in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court making the decision that it didn't matter if your signature matched on your mail-in ballot. I mean, this is just the mass mobilization of corruption here. This is the advocacy that these Soros-appointed or funded rather judges that have taken far left money all their lives to wind up on the Supreme Court and to wind up as state prosecutors and so on and so forth. And now what they're doing is they're trying to make it so that, you know, mass mail voting fraud can occur. And Natalie, you've been through how many of these stories now? Yesterday, I think we had 12,000 Jersey Shore ballots returned as undeliverable.
And I was going to say, just today, again, obviously mail-in balloting has definitely been exploited, but sometimes I think there's even genuine errors when it comes to the actual processing of them. For example, in Wisconsin, a critical swing state, an estimated 24,600 ballots were printed in containing some sort of error, so the County Board of Elections had to remail all those ballots to the individuals. So it's really just chaos, whether it's George Soros funded and fueled, or just by nature of the fact that these county election boards cannot handle the overwhelming, astronomically high number of mail-in ballots that are coming in and out, and sometimes multiple cases, sometimes to dead people, you name it. It's really a recipe for disaster.
It is an intentional recipe for disaster. We've got to go to a break now. Kane, when we come back, I want to get your thoughts on why the Democrats and their media allies pitched a fit over Amy Coney Barrett, because they know all of this mail-in voting fraud is going to end up in the Supreme Court, and they know with a conservative-dominated Supreme Court there is going to be a massive expose of all the steps they've taken to try and corrupt American democracy forever. We'll be right back. BLM. Biden's laptop matters. We actually have some Biden's laptop matters swag available. I'm going to tweet a link to it after this show. Make sure you're following me at Raheem Kassam. Make sure you're following Natalie at Natalie G. Winters. And make sure that you're going to citizenfreepress.com. I want to welcome back to the show Kane, the founder and editor-in-chief of citizenfreepress.com. Natalie Winters in the house as well. Let's start with you, Natalie. Coyotes and prepaid taxes and Abraham Lincoln. Last night was kind of a disaster for the left.
So many gaffes. A moment that stood out to me in particular was when Joe Biden branded, again, the greatest national security threat in the United States right now, according to the left, the quote, Proud Boys, the poor boys, right? He couldn't even remember the name. In contrast, I don't think we've ever misspoke referencing Black Lives Matter or Antifa because we understand and internalize the actual threat that these far left radical groups pose to American society. In contrast, Joe Biden can't even remember the name, which to me suggests that he's getting, talkers from his advisors that you got to hammer Proud Boys. He doesn't know what it is, partly because it's not actually an issue in American society. But you also saw a host of, the blue checkmark brigade on Twitter, ranging from Democratic activists like David Hogg to a Georgia state representative who I believe is also the House whip for Georgia Democrats within that legislature. So not just a low-level rep, but a really leadership, to 2 PhDs, to people who've worked in journalism, far left people, slamming President Trump for using the term coyote, referencing individuals who bring illegal immigrants across the United States southern border. Often there's a lot of sexual harassment and in some cases murder involved. It really is a despicable industry that the Democrats aid and abet by leaving the border wide open. But these individuals on Twitter were making fun of President Trump for using the term coyote, which anyone who knows an ounce about immigration policy, that word is used very frequently. It's not a conspiracy. Right. It's not Russian disinformation. Right. But nonetheless, you saw all the Twitter blue check marks going after President Trump for using the lingo of immigration policy.
And Kane, let's not forget that last night Joe Biden actually said the word mistake to describe the Obama-Biden administration's immigration policy.
Yeah, that was kind of a startling moment. It was a very startling moment. In fact, I think, when Natalie was talking about with everyone, all the blue check marks, all these supposedly intelligent individuals, journalists, having no idea what coyote means, that just sort of shows you how disattached that group is from the reality on immigration. They don't, they're so unconcerned with it that they don't even know the vocabulary. And for Biden to admit that, say the word mistake, I'm sure his handlers aren't happy about that. There's some other stuff going on that I wanted to get out pretty quickly. One is that the Detroit News endorsed John James, the black conservative former Air Force pilot, endorsed John James in the Senate race versus Gary Peters. That could be huge. And lo and behold, Twitter slapped a warning label on sharing the tweet. So if you attempt to retweet it, it tells you to read the story first. Under what bit of reality is an endorsement from the Detroit News a controversial story that shouldn't be retweeted? So that's embarrassing. Also mentioning quickly, the Hunter email that mentioned Kamala as a contact with the Chinese energy firm, that came out yesterday. Very interesting. Susan Ferrecchio, Washington Examiner congressional reporter, she destroyed Brian Stelter. It's one of the best clips I've seen in weeks. People should look at that on my site. If you haven't yet, it's fantastic. She calls Stelter to the curb. And then I want to mention one thing. Since we're talking about the Biden family so much, I want to remind people that Biden has another brother. His name is Frank. He's 66. He's younger. And 20 years ago, in an 80-mile-per-hour car crash, he killed a young father and was ordered by the court to pay over $1 million in damages and didn't pay a red cent until October 2nd of this year, just updated by the Daily Mail. I just found this because of a story that Daily Mail did about a month ago exposing that he hadn't paid anything. he's finally started to pay up. And that brother, Frank Biden, is just as corrupt as Jim Biden is, and has used Joe Biden's name and to benefit himself financially and personally for a long time. So there's a lot of things happening besides the hard drive from hell. But that hard drive is the story, and it's going to be the story all weekend. And you guys at National Pulse and the team at War Room will most likely be doing all the legwork, trying to just, work your way through these emails and these videos. So I look forward to helping you, publishing some of that stuff. There you go. Looks like you've got it right there. So
Joe Biden, this is how your campaign for president ends. Right here.
That's good.
It's in my pocket.
That's beautiful.
And that's where it stays.
Beautiful. Yeah, I can't top that.
Natalie wanted to jump in here, I think.
Yeah, just to backtrack a bit, talking about how Joe Biden called the Obama administration's approach to immigration, specifically the cages, a mistake, yet he didn't really expound. I think it's curious what he meant by mistake, because if you look at the immigration policies that he's pushing now, he wants nearly 80 million more people to come into the country, specifically 77 million, which would be a 25% increase in the overall United States population. So when you talk about him thinking that the Obama administration's approach to immigration was a mistake, it might not be in the way that we're thinking, because I think that he wants to considerably add to the United States population through immigration, chain migration, and frankly, even illegal immigration. As many advisors, the Biden unity ticket, they're very much in favor of an open border.
Yeah, I think that's right. I was actually thinking the same thing this morning. We've got to get that story back up that we did, where we went through exactly how many people an immigration amnesty would mean for here in the United States. We did that a couple of months ago. Kane, we've got about 45 seconds left. Anything else to add, apart from to go to citizenfreepress.com, make it your homepage?
Yeah, I'm at Citizen Free Press from 10 a.m. to about 4 a.m. 7 days a week. So come by, stop in the chat rooms, and try not to get addicted to the site. I want to quickly say that I'm going to post the Jim Banks story, Natalie's work, the freedom of information. That's fantastic work. I can't believe 2023 is going to be when we finally find out about the private meetings with Xi. And have a good weekend buried in that hard drive, and let's see if we can bury Biden by Monday.
Have a good weekend to yourself as well, Kane, and to everyone out there watching. This is the National Pulse. Go to thenationalpulse.com. We're going to be breaking a lot more news over the course of the weekend. Natalie Winters, Raheem Kassam. We'll see you back 3 p.m. on Monday.